Hi, it's Rabbi Bob Alper. Um, Happy to be with you again. Um, as I always introduce myself, I'm a rabbi, a stand up comic, I'm an author coming to you from Vermont in the United States. Um, and you can find out more about me, see video of my comedy, see links to my books, see my performance schedule, all at www.bobalper.com. Today I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I want to read somebody else's work. It's not original with me. It's a poem, one of my favorite poems by a man named Walter Hard. And you've never heard of Walter Hard. Uh, if you live in southwestern Vermont, um, you may have heard of. I was with a group of about 50 southwestern Vermont people recently, and I said, "How many have heard of Walter Hard?" And one person raised their hand, which is sad because Walter Hard was an important man, lived in the 40s and 50s, 1940s, 1950s. He was a state legislator. He was a pharmacist. He started a bookstore with his daughter. He was a poet, very much like Robert Frost, who lived about 20 minutes away from where Walter Hard lived. He wrote about the people of our area, often funny, often very poignant. His poetry could bring you to laugh out loud or bring you to tears, sometimes both in one poem. And he captured the essence of Vermont back then in the 1940s and 1950s. He captured the essence of the people. And that still obtains today. I mean, somebody once said, Vermont is what America was. I love that phrase. Vermont is a very different state than other states. And that's why we love it, love living here. So the story I want to read to you is one of my favorites, and I hope you'll understand why. It's short, but it's one of his poems called A Mitigating Circumstance. Of course, during the 2 years the young minister had stayed in the village, he had not escaped some criticism. Being the successor to Dr. Anderson, who had served the church for 40 odd years, it was natural that some of the older members found a stranger in the pulpit hard to bear. However, the young minister, and he was usually called that, was very tactful and made his changes slowly. Gradually, the empty pews began to be filled. By the end of his second year, the church was done over, and at that time, several relics of the past disappeared, especially some portraits from the ladies' parlor in the basement of the church. This aroused the ire of Deacon Elmer. He was only mollified when the young minister explained how unworthy of these fathers in Israel the crayon portraits really were. The deacon immediately made arrangements for an oil of himself to be made from some special photographs after his demise by adding a codicil to his will. When it was reported that the young minister had received a call to a much larger church, there was a feeling of sorrow all over the village. Only Deacon Elmer failed to express regret. He kept a tight mouthed silence, and people generally thought it was the picture episode which still rankled in his bosom. Finally, Ned Stiles said to the deacon that he just couldn't understand his attitude. "Some say you're even glad he's going," Ned said. The deacon was silent for a minute. Then he said, "No, that ain't it at all. I'm sorry he's going, but there's another side to it. He's brought our church something of an honor it ain't never had before." He shut his mouth tight and looked at Ned. "Did you ever stop to think that he's the first minister our church ever had, to my knowledge, that anybody else wanted?"